bring the mic over.
Yeah, we're old people.
You're on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is February 10th. This is going to be the official budget and bond hearing, actually the warrant hearing for the town of Tufton. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who don't have any paperwork, everything is right here on this front table. There's a copy of everything we'll be talking about this evening. And so we'll begin. How we're going to be doing this is I'll be going through each line item on the budget, and telling you what it was last year, what it is this year, and anybody has any questions that you'd like to talk to the community about that we can't answer, maybe perhaps Chip can. So we're going to start off with line 4130. Which is the executive, which was last year was $114,200. This year is $120,038. Passed on a 7-0 vote on November 9th. This, of course, is the budget for the administrative assistant, secretary, selectman, and moderator. Questions. Moving on to 4140, which is the town clerk's budget. Last year was $86,030. This year is $96,879. Once again, this passed 7-0 on 11/9. One of the big changes, of course, this year is we're going to have 3 elections versus 1, and some of the associated additional costs are going to be the cost of absentee ballots, which has risen considerably, as well as buying a new printer. At this point, I forgot to mention the very first thing. In our next budget year, will be our cost of living increase for our employee base is going to be 4.6%. As an employee in payroll-driven business, this constitutes a large part of this year's anticipated budget. I think most of the people here are not probably aware of that. So. Moving on, 4150, financial administration. Last year was $153,803. This year, $168,321. This passed on a 7-0 vote on November 9th. This is for tax collection purposes, videotaping, cost of auditors, as well as some new and upgraded computer software. Yes, Joe?
I have a question. Okay, on the selectmen's allowance, line 4150, we got like, the budget request says like 4,000, but on the front page, we have selectmen under the executive, and that's like 15.3. There's a difference in the numbers there, so am I wrong, or?
Yeah, there are 2 different aspects to the selectmen's compensation. The compensation is actually $15,300, which is on the first budget. The 4,000 is the selectmen's expenses. So that's an expense.
Oh, okay. So one's, yeah, okay. So,
one's salary,
right.
One's expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Next item, line item 9 is 4152, reevaluation of property. Last year was $46,980. This year, as originally proposed, was $48,396. And I believe that Selectman Marks would like to speak to this.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer an amendment to this budget to add $40,000 for the purposes of completing property revaluation in the 2022 year. We received our annual letter from the from DRA in January telling us that our equalization rate was 73.1%, which reflected back to us the substantial change in market value on properties that's occurred over the past year. Normally we do a complete revaluation every 5 years. It's been 2.5 years since that was done, and based upon that change in valuation, the board determined that we're going to revalue property again this year, so it'll only be 3 years since the last reval. And the cost of that reval is $40,000. We did not budget for it because we didn't anticipate until this past month that was going to be something that was necessary.
Okay.
Bill, do we normally wait a year or so? I mean, could this be a bubble that's occurring right now as opposed to a steady state increase in values?
So, I don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm just...
Yeah, and here's the reality as property values change, and when they change by that much, not everybody's property value changes the same amount. So if all the properties went up in value to the point that we needed to adjust them all by 27% to meet the state's market value requirement, no big deal. But properties, particularly lakefront properties, values have gone up substantially more than other areas in town. So what happens if we don't adjust everybody's values to what the market is today, the people that live in the areas that haven't seen as much market appreciation pay more, relatively more taxes, because they're paying an average rate that's the same as for the whole town.
Yeah.
So that's why we felt that it was important to go ahead and do the revaluation in 2022. And going forward, if in fact the values level off, then at the point when the next normal 5-year revaluation would be done, the board at that time might decide that they're going to push it off a little longer. Some towns do it every year. Boltonboro's a town that does a complete revaluation every year, so that everybody's values are as close to current market as they can be. Our norm is 5 years, but we felt it was important that we jump on it at this point because of the big change in valuation.
Is the state requiring you to do this right now because it's below a certain percentage?
The state does not require us to do a reval now, no.
But they're gonna adjust they keep track of all of our sales. So, I mean, just as an anecdote, when I was a selectman before, the ratio was I think 91%, and the state was thinking we should look at revaluing in a year or so, but this was back in the early 2000s. And I was seriously surprised we were 27% out of balance.
Well, of course, this is a change to what we had voted on as a budget committee as we were going through our process. At the end of the hearing, we will be adjourning the hearing, of course, for our final vote, and that's when we will deal with that then. Okay, moving on to 4153, legal. Last year was $63,350. This year is $53,350, lower of $10,000. And it was explained to us that there are no big cases on the horizon facing the town, so that is a change on that. Excuse me. Moving on to 55, personal administration, $63,004 last year. This year, $636,555. This was a 5-1 vote on 1/4/22.
600, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, 635 is the number I have.
Well, that is entirely a fat finger typo on my part, I apologize.
635, 555.
555, excuse me. To the selectmen's credit, this is the smallest increase in years, but as part of our ongoing discussion, it still centers on potential employee contribution to health costs.
And we had, okay, I guess if we're going to editorialize, I'll do mine. This is actually a reduction in the health insurance cost for this year over last year of $24,000. The increase happened in the retirement fund with the state of New Hampshire underfunding the retirement portion that should be coming from them and isn't. So that went up from $212,000 to $234,000. So more than all of the increase year to year on the whole budget was encompassed right there.
Point well taken. I apologize.
No, you're gonna have fun with this, right?
Yeah, okay. Moving on, 4191, planning and zoning. Last year, 26,227. This year, 31,368. The increases explained were due to increased applications and combining of two employee functions into one. Well, moving on, 4194. General government buildings, 138,500 last year, and 141,808 this year. We had extensive conversation on this, as the way the figures, the numbers we presented to the budget committee in the past are very convoluted. The present format does indeed show all the numbers, but doesn't necessarily show the numbers in a way that's easily decipherable in order to assess what the true costs are for each building and each department. And we urge the selectmen perhaps to devise a different format for presentation, so indeed next year we will know what all the fire equipment, all the fire buildings will cost, what the police building would cost, so on and so forth. And hopefully that will be coming forth soon.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
can all these figures be pulled out of detail?
can you pull them out of detail?
Yeah, the actual costs.
Well, we have that as presented. But for example, we end up in a situation we will have, different fire station heat, different fire station electric. It would be very nice to see what's the cost to run Mirror Lake, what's the cost to run Melwood Village, what are the true costs for the central fire station. This is it's more a question of trying to get an overall picture of what the total costs are by department, rather than just numbers scattered here and there. Nothing that was trying to be slid across without us knowing. It was just a question of how everything was presented. So, and it's been an ongoing thing, and hopefully we'll be able to deal with that next year.
It may be a matter of I did a breakdown for the fire department for all the numbers. And it may be that we're gonna have to create reports, because I'm not certain that Department of Revenue Administration is gonna let us make that much.
I'm not asking you to change what their numbers are supposed to be.
Right.
I'm asking to have something presented to the budget committee
Right.
that is more reflective of what.
So it may be outside
each
of
thing
this
is.
format.
Exactly.
And maybe a report on that.
Well, the same type of thing we do for the library, trying to give you, 5-year history of what's really going on, so.
I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I know that this is just me. I'd be happy if we could just get a total figure for, let's say, the fire department, and a total figure for the facilities for the police and so forth. And that would be more than helpful, because if I just had that as a separate piece of paper, I can take that figure for the fire department and add it to the operating budget of the fire department, and I've got the answer that I'm looking for. I don't think we need a separate report other than just that. And so that would just be my suggestion.
I think we're both talking about the same thing.
Okay, good.
It's just trying to get a better handle on what
Yeah.
things actually have to as far as cost. Okay. Moving on to 4195, cemeteries. Last year was 29,961. This year is 29,961. Oh, wait a second, hold on. I told you I spent way too much time. That's right, it's true.
That's right.
That's true. I was gonna say, it didn't change.
No, you're right.
And there was no change from last year. There's still a large amount of money to be raised for old cemetery restorations. And we discussed the fact that the sexton position is still to be filled, but it still needs to be funded. Okay. 4196, insurance. Last year 73,789, this year 76,737. This is a 7-0 vote on the 14th of December. We had originally talked about, voted on a different number, but it was revised down from the original amount due to lower workers' compensation numbers.
Excuse me.
4199 of the general government, 475 last year, $475 this year. 5-0 vote on October 5th. This is for the Joint Loss Maintenance Committee, as well as a report of the CIP. $4210, police. Last year, 441,247. This year, 457,764. This is a 6-0 vote on November 23rd. Notable things were reduced hours for the administrative assistant. There had been an original request for additional officer, which have been deleted. Vehicle needs were discussed and will be discussed further on a warrant article. Some of the big expenses were for cruiser radios and, of course, usual equipment expenses. Moving on, 4215, ambulance. Last year, 196,191. This year, 205,595. This was a 5-0 vote on October 5th. This is a one-year contract with Stuart's Ambulance. That's a 4.4% increase, which is limited by New Hampshire CIP.
And last year was 196,930 and 44 cents. I think you just misread.
Told you I have to get Excel. 931.
Yeah. So it's a little less than 4%.
Moving on to 4220. Excuse me, fire department. Last year, 496,059. This year, 527,995. This is a 7-0 vote on November 9th. Significant increase this year in firefighters' overnight shift coverage. The chief explained that we're having a hard time getting people to be available in the overnight hours, and this was a stipend to help alleviate that. There was new computer software involved, as well as a rehab on the fireboat.
Now, as far as the overnight shift coverage was cut out, it was far higher than that.
Anything else?
Then, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let it go. Sorry.
Moving on, 4240, building inspection. Last year was 67,922. This year 72,217. This is a 6-0 vote on October 26th. This is the code office expenses. Moving on, 4290, emergency management. Last year 21,703, this year 22,246. This is a 7-0 vote on 11-9. Most of the expenses were in generator maintenance. We now have several generators within the town that we have to maintain. There was a big change, there was a savings by switching maintenance on our big generator.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, back on emergency, on building inspection, just a note that the total budget asked is, or approved is 72,217. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost again.
It's right here.
Okay,
It's right here.
got it. I apologize.
Okay, you there? Isn't that what I said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep to myself.
Moving on then, let's see, 4312, highways and streets. Last year 624,325, this year 655,800. This is a 6-0 vote on October 26th. Notable increases are in winter maintenance and tree removal. This is, of course, as much as our business is payroll driven for the town, highways and streets are so much more weather driven. So if we have a bad winter, it's going to, yes, I'm sorry, Joe.
That's all right, when you're done. I just want to question about the road striping. It seems to me that way back when it was like $8 grand, okay? And, you know, it's just jumped up enormously. Just paint doesn't last. I was complaining about it the other day. It's gone, you know, halfway through the winter. So what's that all about? Is Jim shopping around? Is the selectman shopping around? Are we looking for a better deal? You know, and have we increased the roads that we're doing these days? I've just been out of touch with it lately, even though I think I'm listening to them all the time. Chip, can you answer any of that?
Well, I think it's kind of outside the area for this meeting, but last year, 2021, we spent $14,420 on striping. So we're asking, or the budget committee has approved $15,000 for this year. The budget last year was $11,525. So we actually overspent that line in 2021 and are remedying that in 2022. As far as the quality and the veracity of the paint, I think that's a discussion we need to have with the road agent. But we're not spending less on striping, if that's your question.
But we're going with the same guy all the time, is that correct? The same outfit, same company?
Well, there are only a certain number of companies that'll stripe $15,000 worth of road. I mean, there's state striping contracts that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we're limited in our ability to attract companies to do this.
But
I think, once again, I think
that-
this is a discussion for the selectman's office.
Fine, that's all fine and well. It just seems to me, and just all this little stuff, that we should be shopping around a little bit better. I'm sure we could do better. And we've had some issues with the striping people in the past, so it's just a comment. I don't get to make too many comments, but I'm glad we have this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I can offer a couple of
Sure.
thoughts on this. My recollection from the board's conversation with the road agent is there are multiple different levels of paint. We don't buy the highest, the most expensive paint. We don't buy the cheapest paint. We're somewhere in the middle. That's number one, okay? I know that we have bid the job out before. The biggest challenge we have is getting somebody that will do the work. It doesn't matter if you contract with somebody who never shows up and you don't get it done. So 2 or 3 years ago, we got hooked up with the outfit that's been doing it the last several years, and they have been reliable in terms of getting it done and getting it done pretty much in the time frame that we're looking to have it done. Are there other companies out there? There may be, but as Chip said, we're small potatoes in this particular business, and it's a matter of getting somebody who will fit us in among their big jobs, and the guy we've been using has been pretty dependable.
So should the town invest?
The third observation I want to make is, if you notice the state roads, many of them are striped twice a year. They stripe in the spring and they come back stripe in the fall. That's I think a way to deal with it. We stripe once a year.
And
you know, maybe we should spend $45,000 a year and go with top row paint and do it twice a year.
well, I don't know if it's that much, but I think we probably ought to look for better quality of paint instead of spending the same amount of money every year, so at least it would last, at least through the winter. Thank you.
Further discussion on highways? Moving on, 4313, other highways and streets. This is printed as docks and bridges. 5,000 last year, 5,000 this year. This is for the normal upkeep of our docks, as well as the expense of running the bubblers for the winter time. 4324, solid waste. Last year, 43,959. This year, 488,940. This is a 7-0 vote on December 14th. Some of the high notes were there's a new position being proposed to sort paper in anticipation of paper recycling per last year's town meeting vote. We had discussed about different ways this could be accomplished, whether it would be a position that would sort a couple of times a week, or somebody would be there all the time. That still has to be decided. Bob?
Is this new position a recommendation of the recycling center operator?
I believe so, yes. The one thing that we did not get this year, which was a change from past years, which I would like to recommend to the selectmen that perhaps we could listen to, is that in past years, we always would provide a figure of what is known as avoided costs, things that by doing things some way, we avoid the cost of doing it another way. It was something that Clay always did for us, and hopefully our new superintendent will be able to apply that in future years. I found it very interesting.
We actually discussed that topic on Monday's meeting, and I think that Chris is going to include it in his report, in the annual report,
Oh, good.
because he hadn't finalized that number or gotten that number to you. But it will
Great
be-
minds think alike. Thank you. Moving on to 4414, animal control. Last year was $1,750. This year is $1,800. It's a 5-0 vote on October 5th. These are the fees that we pay for to the Lakes Region Humane Society for any house animals that need to be housed.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
I just want to ask, recently, we started collecting paper. I think we started collecting paper, and monies were placed forward. It was like $5,000. Did I get that wrong? Could you answer that? Sure.
Are we back on the solid waste?
Yeah, I just want to back up. Yeah, I didn't see it in the list of an expenditure, so that money had to come from someplace in order for us to do that. Is that correct?
We had an approval from the town at the last town meeting
Right.
to get into paper recycling.
Right.
We had no budget for it in 2021. This year, there's a warrant article to purchase some rebuilt compactors and to put together a plan for how we're gonna provide the labor to do paper recycling. So the paper recycling
Okay.
will actually happen once that warrant article's passed.
Thank you.
Can I just,
Get one behind you there, go.
just to clarify on the animal control, that we do a pretty good job of getting them back with owners, so it was 0 last year, but the actual, the dues and stuff are more the tags and the licensing expenses. So that's kind of in and out, if you will, for the second line, the larger of the 2 lines. Just to clarify that.
Moving on, 4414, issue 50, excuse me. Health agencies. Last year, $40,185. This year, $42,165. This is a 6-0 vote on November 23rd. These are dollars provided to health and social services, the service of the citizens of the town. It should be noted that these have to be applied for annually to the selectmen.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
I recognize a lot of these agencies asking for money at the county level. If the county is giving them money, why is the town giving them money?
Well, I believe
Because the taxpayer ends up paying twice at that point.
well, of course, I can't address what's going on at the county level. All I know is that these are the people who have applied for assistance to deal with Borough citizens every year, and I have no idea what their budgets are. Maybe they feel they need to get money twice.
Mr. Chairman, there's probably quite a few items on this list where they draw money from other sources also.
Mm-hmm. Well, American Red Cross.
This is just
Yeah,
our
starts there.
decision for us.
Yeah. These are just requests at the town level, hopefully to serve Borough town citizens.
We can ask next year, Bob, if we get a request letter, we can ask for a breakdown of where they're getting their money. So if you want to, I mean, I don't think we can at this juncture eliminate anybody because we're not certain.
Well, that wasn't the intent.
I wasn't suggesting that.
Okay.
I was just inquiring that it almost seems like double dipping on the agency's part, and I'm just wondering the purpose, that's all. Thank you.
I know we had that problem with the Blue Loon a while back. But once again, I don't know how their budgets are set up here, and we can ask that question.
Uh, 4442, direct assistance. Last year was $12,250. This year it is $8,250. This was a 5-0 vote on October 5th. The request was lowered this year from the selectmen to the budget committee because more and more service agencies are taking care of some of the things that there is offering more need to the people in the local area than they have in the past, and so that's why the budget was lowered on that. $4520, Parks and Recreation. Last year, $57,111. This year, $57,111. $960,000. This was a 6-0 vote on October 26th. Some line item changes were a request for two swim instructors to aid with the swim lessons, a new line item for beach cleanup, and new expenses related to the concert series on 19 Mile Bay, i.e. banners and police patrol during the concerts. Okay. 4550, library. Last year, $216,747. This year, $260,662. This is a 7-0 vote on December 14th. By statute, a percentage of the budget for the library has to come from private sources. During the original presentation to the budget committee was tabled for more information as to the 5-year history of expenditures. It's just a library being kind of a quasi-public-private body. That information that we get from the town had not been forthcoming. That did come forward, however. The library never knows from year to year what's going to come in donation, but thanks to patron support, the cash balance of the library had grown to the point where the trustees felt that a resubmittal of the request for $15,000 less than original could be done without sacrificing services. Only non-salary increase of note is electricity line in the budget because it's our first full year in the new building. And last year was a projection of costs. This year we had a better handle on true costs. Okay. 4583, patriotic purposes. Last year, $1,500. This year, $1,500. It was a 5-0 vote on October 5th. This is for cemetery flags, etc., or Memorial Day in the town cemetery. $45.89, gifts and donations. Last year, $500. This year, $1,000. This was a 5-0 vote on October 5th. This is for acknowledgments for people in the community who perhaps had passed away, as well as for those who have given service to the community. $4612, conservation. Last year, $19,100. This year, $18,800. This was a 6-0 vote on January 4th. There was a decrease in hours for the administrative assistant. The $3,000 for the Great Meadow project was explained as in order for seed money, in order for an organization to go out and apply for grants. There's going to have to be money in the till to show that there was earnest effort on the part of the town to have this accomplished. $4619, other conservation. Last year was $2,300. This year is $6,175. This was a 7-0 vote on October 9th. It was explained to us that the milfoil mitigation money is going to be put into the capital reserve fund for this purpose. $4711, long-term bonds and notes. $153,700 last year. That is the same this year. It's a 5-0 vote on October 5th. This, of course, is for the mortgage on the fire station. And the final line item is long-term interest of $26,792 versus $22,965. This was, once again, was a 5-0 vote on October 5th. This is the interest on the above note for the fire station, and as an allocation on all mortgages, it is a declining balance on the interest every year. And that is explanation going over all the line items. As presented earlier, last year's budget was $495,600. This year's proposed budget is going to be $4,369,340, as we voted on during the course of our meetings. The amendment that was proposed by Selectman Marcuson this evening, if approved, and our final approval, will bring us to $4,409,340, which will be approximately a little bit less than a 5% increase. And keeping in mind, of course, as I started saying again, with a 4.6% COLA increase, I have to commend the Selectmen on putting in a very reasonable budget, in my estimation. That takes care of the budget. Moving on, we're going over the warrant articles. I will read each article. Article 1 is, of course, to choose all necessary town officers. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $287,500 for the repairs and upgrade of Union Wharf. This is recommended by the Selectmen 3-0 and the Budget Committee 5-0. You are the proposers of the warrant article.
Flesh this out, are we? Okay, we've been working on this for a couple of years to try to get the permitting in place to reconstruct the wharf at 19 Mile Bay all the way out to the wooden section. This would modify the edges, or the edges of the wharf, so that docks coming in or boats coming into dock, there's not going to be that 18-inch or 2-foot step. It will replace the tie cables that are currently underneath the dirt work part of the wharf, and completely encase the wharf with I guess it's
Sheet piling.
sheet piling. Thank you. Sheet piling all the way around. It should alleviate the need for repairs for quite a long time. The issue that was foremost in trying to get this permitting is that we didn't own the land underneath, according to the state, didn't own the land underneath the wharf. So we had to get a grant in right, but that has been accomplished.
So what's the resolution? We own the land?
The resolution is we were given a grant in right, yeah, so that land underneath the wharf would be the town of Tufton Boroughs. Even though the lake didn't extend as far as it did back in the 1800s when the wharf was built. The fact that the wharf's been there for 150 years.
I guess that says something. I mean, it was there. How could they expect us to go on without a grant, right?
They missed it when they gave grants in
They
right.
missed it.
Yeah.
Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $124,625 to pay a fourth and final installment towards the fire truck acquired in 2018, excuse me, as approved by the voters pursuant to Article 6 of the 2018 town meeting. for purchase amount of $120,209.83 in the interest of $4,415.17. This 5-year lease agreement contains an escape clause. This is recommended by the Selectmen 3-0 and the Budget Committee 5-0. This is just going on as continuation pay for our fire truck.
Yeah, this is the final payment on this fire truck. I expect that next year we'll see a capital reserve created for the purchase and replacement of our next fire truck sometime in the future.
Article 4. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $468,000 as additional funding for the construction of the new police facility. This article will be non-lapsed until December 31st of 2027, or completion, whichever comes first. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 and the Budget Committee 4-1. We're in a situation where obviously inflation has grabbed us by the throat as individuals and by the community, and we are going to accomplish the completion of this project. It's going to take this additional funding.
Good luck.
All we can do is what we can do.
That's right.
Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $400,000 for the preparation and paving of major town through roads. Recommended by the Selectmen 3-0 and by the Budget Committee 5-0. This is a change in what historically has been known as special for tar, which is a phrase I dearly miss within the community. These dollars are going to go through what is considered to be our major crossroads, which would be Union Wharf, Pembroke Neck,
Ledge Hill, Sodom.
Road.
Call it Durgan if you'd like to as well.
I feel like you probably lose Brown.
Yeah, just through.
Tufton Neck is
Now
considered
that
through
we,
road.
No, but I'm not going to correct you.
now that we don't tar and feather anymore, that's why we had to get rid of that line.
Right.
That's true.
Which I personally think was the better way to go, and still do.
Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the preparation for paving of Tuftonboro neighborhood roads. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 and the Budget Committee 5-0. This is a change this year to deal with town-owned roads that are not necessarily through roads. Shirley Way, it was brought to us as an example of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, we have quite a few roads that aren't technically through roads, but that the town has to maintain. And historically, they've had less and less attention paid to them as costs have gone up. It doesn't make them any less important.
One
So-
going to Camp William Lawrence really hasn't been touched.
I'm sorry?
Camp William Lawrence Road, Federal Corner, hasn't been touched in years.
Mr. Chairman?
The
Sir,
My road, Federal
yeah,
Corner Road.
Federal Corner Road, I think we are planning on doing work this year on that. But we had
We
done
did some
work.
on it last year as well.
Did we do some last year as well?
Yep.
Okay. And then North Line Road. we
North Line
finished
Road did get
on.
work on, yeah.
Right. But part of the problem that we've run into is that the budget just doesn't accomplish the amount of work that needs to get done. And we are trying to stay within the plan that Lakes Region plan put together for paving to try to bring our roads up to a certain standard so that we can stabilize the budget needs for the paving articles as well as for maintenance.
Where is this $100,000 number generated from? And is there a plan moving forward for this $100,000?
Yeah, we have, excuse me, we have far more than $100,000 worth of work. So we have a list. I mean, we can start with Shirley Way or
Tubeck Lane.
Tubeck Lane. So there are any number of smaller streets that need attention, and we do have preliminary pricing on doing that. We haven't made the decision which ones we're going to do until we get this through the town meeting process.
Thank you.
Or we could easily spend $500,000.
Oh, I'm sure, I just wanted to know where the number
The
came from.
$100,000 came out of the sky
And what the
as a
vision was.
reasonable amount to put on the warrant.
Okay.
And we can price that any way you want.
Article 7, to see the town will vote to establish an expendable trust fund to be known as the Police Vehicle Expendable Trust Fund for the purpose of purchasing, equipping, and refitting police vehicles for the town of Tuftonboro, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 to be placed into this fund. Excuse me. Furthermore, to appoint the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend both principal and interest from this fund.
What's that?
Go ahead.
I disagree with some of the language that's in this article. For the purpose of purchasing, at several of the meetings it's been discussed, somebody offered for $80,000 or $40,000 each, you can repair the other vehicles that are already there or that we already own, instead of buying something new right off the bat. I understand we replace them every 6 to 8 years, but that's not the point. The point is, let's get a little more value for our money. Buying a brand new vehicle all the time just doesn't solve the problem. Furthermore, giving the selectmen carte blanche, so to speak, just, well, we won't fix the old ones, we'll just buy a new one. That's just too easy to say. So I disagree with the phrase, for the purpose of purchasing. Okay, equipping and refitting other vehicles, that would be, it's just my comment, my opinion. Thank you.
What was presented to us was the fact that, indeed, maybe some of our existing equipment could be rebuilt for far less than buying a new cruiser. And I think that was the intention of the selectmen, correct me if I'm wrong. And as far as having the ability to have selectmen expend, that's why they're the selectmen. That's why we vote for them to deal with things like this.
Right, and I mean, just to add to that, we were asked for a police cruiser from our police chief. Looking at the market, there may not be a police cruiser available this year. That doesn't obviate the problems that we might have or do have with the current crop of cruisers that we own. So we may be in a situation where rebuilding might be our only option. As to the language at the end, this is an expendable trust fund. If you don't put the language of appointing the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend at the end of that warrant article, then we don't have the ability to spend the money. We have to have if we were to do it mid-year, we'd have to have a special town meeting to give the selectmen authority to spend. So that's all that's there for. It's not giving anybody carte blanche about anything. And all of our meetings, as you well know, Joe, are broadcast. So if someone has an issue over how we're going to approach the police vehicles going forward in 2022, they can certainly come in and talk to us about it.
Well, I just expressed my opinion, so I didn't like it.
Appreciate that.
You heard it. You heard it here first.
That's why it's here. That's why we're here.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
So,
could I just step back for a minute to the two road articles? I have a question. I think I know the answer, but maybe I should just ask it. Can the money for Article 5 and Article 4, can they be interchanged to some extent? In other words, if we need a little additional funds to support some of the local roads, and there's some additional funds left over from,
I'm sorry, did you read Article 5 and Article 6?
yeah.
Or you said Article 4?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, the
I meant
two-page- the two
Article
pages.
5 and Article 6.
Thank you, yeah.
Did I complete my question enough, or do I have to?
Well, I think you were alluding to the fact that money be swapped back and forth.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Probably not, but I just want to ask the question to make sure.
I think that correct me if I'm wrong, but if a warrant article is designated for a designated purpose,
Yeah.
I think that's what those dollars
We'll
are.
lock in.
And in both cases, both the through roads and the neighborhood roads, we have more than this amount of expense to cover, so.
Right. So in the future, could one warrant suffice for both purposes?
Well, that's the way it always has been in the past.
If past experience is any indication, no.
No.
Because none of the money will get spent on local roads.
I see,
And
okay.
the political muscle is towards the through roads.
I got you. Okay, thank you very much.
Article 8. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to purchase a baler and container for the purpose of implementing a paper recycling program at the transfer station, as voted and approved by warrant Article 16 of the 2021 warrant. This was voted 3-0 by the selectmen and 5-0 for the budget committee, as I alluded to when we're talking about solid waste. This is what this position that has been requested is to deal with. It's one thing to have somebody separate out paper, but then you have to get rid of it, which is going to take care of the need of a baler.
So the vote for Article 16 of 2021 was a question. It didn't include any ask for money. So it was a question of whether or not the town of Tuftonboro wanted to get into the business of paper recycling, knowing that it would have some costs. That question was answered in the affirmative, so it was our job in 2021 to establish what those costs would be. And our best estimate to date is going forward with a $25,000 budget. And hence this article.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to establish a contingency fund for the current year for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate $5,000 to put in the fund. Says sum to come from the undesignated fund balance, and the appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse into the general fund. This is a 3-0 vote by the selectmen and a 5-0 vote by the budget committee.
This is an annual occurrence. We rarely, if ever, used it, but it's the only place we have any latitude if we're in a state of emergency and we needed some cash without holding a special town meeting. And it does lapse back into the general fund, which is essentially the undesignated fund balance at the end of the year. And each year we have allocated certain amounts from the undesignated fund balance to offset taxes. So it's essentially revolving back into the taxpayer's pocket.
And finally, Article 10. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the budget committee recommended sum of $4,369,340 for general town operations. The selectmen recommend $4,384,340. This article does not include any special or individual warrant articles. And it has been recommended by the budget committee 5-0. I would also say that this is going to be amended, this dollar figure will be amended at the end of this meeting to deal with the request by the selectmen for evaluation. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our budget and our warrant articles. The last thing we have as part of our hearing is that an opportunity to look at our anticipated revenues for this coming year. I'm not going to bother to read every line by line number. Last year's anticipated revenue was $1,586,610. This year, our anticipated revenue is $1,544,235. My only comment was that it was rather a significant reduction in meals and rooms. That were $28,000 drop in rooms and meals for next year.
Yeah, we have to, we didn't want to overstate our revenues. We did not have a final figure from the state.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, that's what I want to get on the
Although we
record.
collected 178,000 last year, we have no guarantee. The only, one thing I wanted to point out was, because Jack's here and I want to make him happy, but your building inspection line, 4240, budget line is 72,217. Building permits generated $61,185 last year. We've estimated $58,000 this year, so a significant portion, virtually all of the expenses of that department are covered through fees. We also have local fiscal recovery money of $126,622, which is not included in this figure of $1,544,235. So I guess we can explain that at town meeting. But that will effectively bring the total budget increase down below 5%. It should be in the 4.4% range. Because right now we're about $20,000 higher this year than last year, $19,500 in revenues, estimated revenues. So the estimated revenues are also the actual expenses. That's what we said.
And that concludes everything we have for our hearing. Thank you all for coming. At this point in the evening, we're going to be suspending the public hearing. And we're going to be reconvening to our regular budget committee meeting. First order of business is going to be review and approval of the January 18th minutes. Anybody see anything out of the ordinary? I didn't.
I move acceptance of the minutes.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Move the second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Nothing really for chairman's comments. The last thing we have to do, of course, is to have our final review and adoption of the budget and the warrant articles. We've all just heard all of the budget items. We have discussed them at length, and we now have some numbers. With the change in the revaluation figure 4152 from 46,980 to new number.
48,396.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at 20 again. Sorry. 48,936.
396.
396, adding the $40,000 would take our anticipated budget request to $4,409,340.
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Move the second. Do we have any further discussion on this? Is there anybody care to, is there anything else we really need to decide at this point?
So that would, just one clarification, that would, for Jane, our secretary, that would change line 4152, the total to $80,396. Thank you.
Is it anticipated that we're going to go now to a 3-year reval, or that's just going to be subject to market conditions?
This is all predicated on the fact that we're at 73% valuation to actual value. So every year we get a report from the state, and every year we'll make the election to look hard. But when we think that we're not going to have a 27% increase annually in our real estate values, so I don't expect we're going to. And we're not making a blanket statement that we're going to do a reval every 3 years either.
Right.
We're going to look at it. This one will be early, so the next one will.
And you're comfortable with the cost, the $40,000 increase? For
That's a
that?
contracted cost.
It is, and it's been contracted.
Right, with an assessor.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned that we might have a bubble on our hands, and that the properties that have increased rather precipitously this year, lakefront and lake access, might fall off significantly. So I understand what Bill is saying, is that this will certainly help make the tax bill more fair for backlot owners. But on the other hand, if the lakefront properties and the waterfront access properties drop quickly next year, they're the ones that are going to be.
But this works in both directions.
It can go either way.
So DRA is going to give us a report next October or November that says this is what your valuations look like this year. And if all of a sudden there's a 27% drop in value in the lakes, that same impetus to reval is going to be there.
Right. But I know that we've been motivated to do this sort of thing for far less of a ratio. I mean, when it gets to be about 90%, sometimes we're thinking about doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and support this. But again, I'm a little bit concerned. I
have to be honest, I did not see an end to this bubble for a while.
Really? Yeah.
Just the mass exodus from the more urban areas to where we live, I just don't see it stopping.
And historically, values have gone up pretty quickly. They've come down really, really slowly. And the housing stock currently,
There is no housing stock.
it's virtually nil.
And it doesn't necessarily just target the higher priced properties either.
No, we've seen
The whole thing goes
increases
across the entire,
across the board.
across the
It's just that
board.
they're higher on the lakefront than they are on the.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, this is our best guess, so we
Right.
just go for it.
We have a motion on the floor that has been seconded. Is there further discussion? None forthcoming. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, moving on then to our warrant articles.
We do those. Are we going to vote on them again?
What, on each one individually?
We already voted.
Well, we voted on the final budget. And now we really don't have any need to have a further vote on warrant articles because those have already been voted on.
Right.
So,
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
what's that true?
We don't vote on the whole budget. I thought we just did that. I'm
We
sorry.
voted on the entire budget?
No, we voted on the
On the
amendment.
Just the op-
Oh,
Voted on the operating
okay.
budget.
right. Just the operating budget.
That's all we can vote
That's
on.
right that time.
And with that, we've adopted our budget, we've adopted our warrant articles. Other business, is there anything else that you care to add, Chip?
No, I'm gonna hopefully have help defending all of our warrant articles at the town meeting. I'm sure there'll be a better job done, but our goal, or my goal in particular, but our goal as a board was to keep our warrant article and budget as flat as possible. And we're 4% on the general operating budget, and we're within a few dollars on the warrant articles from last year. So there's a steady climb because of costs, but on the other hand, it doesn't need to be precipitous in any direction.
Well, the national rate today was, on the news, was 7.6%. So we're
Right.
holding in it for with possibly some increased revenues. We find if the actuals are a little bit less.
Let's go back.
And with the concern on the police department, I mean, I think we spend a lot of time with our architect and building construction there we were talking about it, but I think we can do a much better job of proactively bidding it. A lot of the costs that are being estimated need to be hammered a little harder. And also, we're spending a couple $1 million. I personally think as much of that should stay in the local economy, or at least Carroll County, as possible, because of the spend on money spent.
Okay then, before I entertain a moment to adjourn, I'd like to just take a moment to thank two members of the committee who are not going to be coming back next year. Barry Ennis has chosen not to run again, and our longest term member by continuous duty is Bob Theft, and I would very much like to appreciate both from me and the committee and from your townspeople for serving the many years that you did. Thank you.
And a privilege.
Okay.
And a privilege.
And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and second, those in favor, aye. And then thank you all, other 23.